we have literally a way to project all higher dimension now. You ready? Geometry is a QR code for your unconscious and subconscious mind. What you're looking at here is an entirely novel object called an alphahedron. Astoundingly beautiful. And 3i Atlas brought this.
Whoa, what do you mean by that?
All of the cells within my body, they all have elements. And each one of those elements are actually tiny miniature galaxies. And I proved that too. We've thought that the world is separate from us, but actually it's just the aspects of us that we have not yet integrated. We're just part of a larger organism. Destiny is just the free will of the higher self. What's coming next is manipulation of matter, because we now understand how to do that. Learning the language of God means that you can commune with the creator, the aspect of yourself that's that 12-dimensional self.
This feels very matrixy. Do we transcend the matrix?
I got shocked inside the king's chamber in the sarcophagus. I completely lost my voice. Like, I had downloads that gave me radiation. I've been getting downloads every single day. There's a new software now coming in called Aquarian OS. The part that's probably going to blow your mind is that there's aspects of ourselves that we didn't know that we thought was separate from us that is actually just us. And when you start to realize that, it's sort of like, let's imagine you've been complaining about how badly the government's been run forever, right? But then you finally realize that, wait a minute, you're the invisible hand that's been behind the government the entire time. So then how does that make you feel? Well, I'd say that's a reckoning, because then you have to start asking yourself the question, and I can explain further in the course of this discussion what I mean exactly by that and illustrate it with analogies and metaphors and direct, examples. But I want to just let that linger out there for a moment, because this reckoning is that we've thought that the world is separate from us, but actually it's just the aspects of us that we have not yet integrated. And so when we see something like Epstein files coming out, that creates a reckoning moment where either we go deeper and plunge deeper into more and more judgment and say, I'm not that, neti, as they would say, right, in Hindu, in India. But rather to understand I am that I am, and why did I choose what I chose?
I remember in one of our last conversations, you spoke about this revelatory moment where you were chatting with your mother, and you were speaking to her, and you were like, "Hey, Mum, I'm not going to judge stuff no more." And she was like, "Oh, that's all well and good, Robert. What about pedophiles?" And she went on this string of like things, and Mum, Mama bears, bless their cotton socks, they know us so well. But she ended up catching you out quite a bit in terms of how difficult it is to transcend judgment. Because when you're saying this reckoning piece, it's calling us into I'm going to use the word, a severe degree of responsibility.
Severe. Yeah. And what I'm going to take you through today, I think, is going to illustrate what I mean much more than I could explain it just through examples like the Epstein files. Right? I've been on a straight download for the last, since November. And I've been kind of a hermit, if you haven't noticed. I haven't really been on social media that much. I tried not to. I've done a few speaking engagements, I did this Conscious Life Expo one. I did this thing in Florida with Jason Shirka. But only a handful, not a lot. And the entire time I've been busy for the most part. Even when I'm at these conferences and doing these things, I've been still getting downloads every single day. And it's culminating, and it feels like it's giving birth to something. And the birth of this, because if you think about it, let's assume that to go to a new software, let's use the analogy of software. Whenever we get a new software template, we get an update, right? And we get kind of an upgrade of software. And it'll say, the new Tahoe software or whatever on Apple is now out, 26.2 or whatever it is, right? Or Sequoia, or whatever the naming was. Well, there's a new software now coming in, and the new software is called Aquarian OS.
You have to tell us more.
Yeah. And in order for that new software to come in, there has to be code that comes along with that software. And it's not that everyone has to understand that code, but it has to be integrated at a level that at least 100th monkey can actually synthesize it. And you know the story of the 100th monkey, right? Where these monkeys, all of a sudden, one monkey started washing their sweet potato washing the mud off of it before they would eat it. And then all of a sudden, all monkeys started doing that.
Across islands, transcending physical space and stuff. Like there was monkeys on this island doing it, and then no one sent a memo. This is way back when, and then all of a sudden, through consciousness, it transpires that monkeys on this island also started doing the same thing.
Precisely. So that's my point, is that I'm probably one of maybe, I don't know how many people, but I'm assuming there must be other people that are going through this as well, who are getting these mathematical type downloads that are very clear. And I feel like, have you ever seen the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind? You've never
No,
seen
I
that?
haven't.
Oh, good.
No.
There's a new one out that he's got about UFOs and everything, but the old one that he had was Close Encounters, and it's from like 1978, and it's about, extraterrestrials coming to visit Earth, and they end up going to Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and the government meets them there for kind of this, private disclosure event. And it's pretty amazing because actually their language was a musical language. And so
Oh.
in their language was, their way of saying hello was da 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 bum
Oh, so it
bum.
wasn't just Portuguese and sounded musical. It actually was musical.
That's right. It was da da dum bum bum. And so when I discovered that there was a musical code beneath the pyramids all around the world, and in particular those in Giza Plateau, I was kind of halfway expecting that the music might actually be the same one. Da da dum bum bum. It wasn't, but it was not far off. It was da 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 da. And those are the pyramids on Giza, expressed as music. It's literally a major third, it's a unison note, a major third, a perfect fifth, and a octave. Da 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 da, a major chord. And that's based on the slope angles of each pyramid. And it's unequivocal. So when you start to understand that and you go, whoa, and by the way, you have to actually go to the king's chamber in order to express the octave representation, to get out of the lower octave. You've got to go visit the king's chamber. That's a 2-to-1 room. That's why it's 2-to-1. So the musical intervals are for Khafre Pyramid, for Menkaure Pyramid, the smallest is 5/4. Then for Khafre Pyramid, it's 4/3. And that has embedded within it. So you take the height over the 1/2 base. That's the proportion. The height over the 1/2 base is 5/4. It doesn't matter what unit of measure you use, it's proportionally that ratio.
The
And
whole
so
way
that's the
through.
way you would leave something in stone if you wanted to convey a message. The proportion would be the thing that you would actually look at, because it would live independent of whatever unit of measure was chosen,
Whatever language you spoke to.
whatever language you spoke. And so then that language must be a musical language, because at its base, mathematics is all music. We just haven't understood all the relationships of that music. And that's what I aim to figure out. That's what I've been working on for a long time now, for more than 15 years. So what I'll say, though, is that the 5/4 proportion gives you an emotional feeling, because that's the major third in music. Da, 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 da. That's why they play that in movies when it's a love scene. All the songs are major third oriented. When it's time to break up, it becomes its opposite, which is the minor sixth. The third and the sixth add together to a ninth. So it becomes, right? So it's no longer da da, it becomes da da. It's the same two notes, just in reverse order, and one going to the higher octave. So you could say that whenever we see or feel romantic love, then maybe there's a question behind it that you might fear also, is the loss of that love or the heartbreak associated with it.
Yeah. That's
right? So that means for Menkaure Pyramid, it's 5/4, it's romantic love, it's also heartbreak. Khafre Pyramid is 4/3, and the way you find its inverse is you take the full base rather than, the height over the half base. You take the full base and then you take it over the height. So that gives you the opposite that'll always add up to 9. So if it's 4/3, that's the perfect fourth in music. And then it becomes 6, but you double the 3, 6/4, which reduces to 3/2. So 3/2 gives you the exact proportion, right, of the perfect fifth. So you now have the major third and the minor sixth, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth. So 5/4, 4/3, 3/2. So then that leaves the Great Pyramid. It must be 2/1. Well, it wasn't. The Great Pyramid turns out to be 2/1 pi. But pi is the circle that's the one where the one or the monad is emanating from. The monad is the concept of a circle as well. So you've literally got, So you've literally got 5/4, 4/3, 3/2, and 2/1, but one expressed as a circle. And no one ever saw that before. No one ever noticed it before or understood that it's actually a musical chord relationship. And that gives you the exact slope angles of each of those pyramids. So what I realized is that the universe is a musical symphony, and each one of us is playing our part. But what I also realized, and the part that's probably going to blow your mind, right? And I'll try to pull all these pieces up for you so that we can walk people through this and understand it, is that what I also discovered in the last few months since last we spoke. When was the last time we did a podcast? How long ago was it?
It's been about 5 months.
5 months. Okay. So you have not talked to me since I've gotten all this stuff at all. This is all totally brand new. The first thing I realized and learned was that we have literally a way to project all higher dimension now. So as part of the
What does
Aquarian
that mean? Yeah.
Are you ready?
I never know when I am or if I am. And especially when you ask that question, I start to get a little nervous and extremely excited at the same time. I've just got to breathe into my nervousness and get excited. Please. So Aquarian OS, getting the update.
It's definitely going to blow your mind. I just got to find a few of these pieces.
Projecting higher dimensions.
Yep, projecting higher dimensions. So let me go ahead and pull it up for you.
Just while you're doing that, for the audience tuning in, I'm so excited for November. For those tuning in, we're going to Egypt with Robert's awareness and Matthias's awareness too. Robert was just mentioning the King's Chamber, and Matthias has a beautiful thing on 11/11 that he's teed up for us. On the 11th of November, we're going to be in the King's Chamber, hopefully. It's just an incredible experience that's lined up. I'll put details in the show notes below. But I'm so excited to see you, Robert, and give you a hug in person as well.
So, Matthias is coming with me to England in May.
Yay!
So let me pull up this, and you can find a lot of this stuff on my website. So this is a paper that I wrote called the Grant Projection Theorem. And what I discovered was there's no consensus on how to project higher dimension mathematically. And a lot of people think, okay, well, and by the way, you've got things like the E8 lattice and all these things are supposed to be higher dimensional objects that nobody knows exactly if that's correct or not. Can we assume that there's more spatial dimensions? We probably can't because we don't know that. That's kind of the nature of the whole beast, right? We have theory. Yeah. And so this would be potentially what we call the 120 cell dodecahedron. And this should represent some form of a higher dimensional object. It's kind of like a tesseract form as a dodecahedron, right? So I started to test this theory out, and I realized that there's actually a means for us to be able to do this. And the way to do that is as follows. So basically what I realized was that there is a foundational basis for all new geometric forms. And nobody knew this also. So what you're looking at here is an entirely novel object called an alphahedron. That's a new shape. It has an interior angle of 137.036 degrees. 137 you might recognize. That is the fine structure constant. We've talked about it before, right? And so you probably would recognize these are just the basic platonic solids. And I'll give it a little different color for you today. Okay. So there's a tetrahedron. I'm sure you recognize that. There's a cube. Here's an octahedron. Here's a dodecahedron. And I made this little program too. I used Claude to do it. Pretty cool stuff. And then I can look at the stellation form of it. So that's the star with points. It's based on pentagonal sides, right? You can see those pentagrams, right? And then you'd see the icosahedron, right? There's the icosahedron. Now, this is a dual solid of the dodecahedron. That means if I just take the center point of each of the 20 sides of the icosahedron and then I attach those all together, then it makes the dodecahedron. And by the same token, if I do the same thing with the cube and I take a center point of each one of the sides, it will form an octahedron when I put those together. So these are dual solids of each other. Then we have Archimedean solids. So this is a truncated tetrahedron. This is a cuboctahedron that Bucky Fuller spoke a lot about, right? And this is the vector equilibrium. It means that it's equidistant from the center to each one of the vertices. And then we have Catalan solids. But what I discovered, and by the way, there's only 31 uniform solids. So the number of geometric forms that we have is only 31. You can think of that as like a language, and we can only speak certain words because there's only certain words that we know. The universe speaks in geometry. It's the language of the universe. So how can we expand the number of words in our vocabulary? Well, we have to figure out a new way to generate new shapes that can actually close and work. So what I realized was that there is a new way to do it, and that every one of the Pythagorean triples that we learned in 8th and 9th grade in high school and junior high actually projects into the third dimension into these shapes, exactly telling us the number of vertices, the number of edges, the number of faces. And it's embedded right within the right triangle of these Pythagorean triples. This one happens to be the shape of a soccer ball that I'm actually making with someone else right now as a new soccer ball design. So because the number of Pythagorean triples are now are infinite, and that's known to be infinite, that means the number of shapes that is now known to humanity is infinite. Each one of these creates a novel shape. And so if you go all the way down to here and I start to stellate it, it starts to look like stuff that we see in nature, like a dandelion. Right? Now, these are new shapes that no one's ever seen before. And you've heard me say before that geometry is a QR code for your unconscious and subconscious mind. So right now, just by you looking at this, it's starting to do something to your unconscious mind.
Or even my conscious mind, to be honest. That's
As well as your
beautiful.
conscious mind too. You start feeling the difference behind it, and trust me, you'll start feeling this more and more over the course of the next few days. It's as if your unconscious has gone to a different URL address, and now it's downloading the Aquarian OS. It's literally like a QR code, right? So what I realized was that the relationship of this was the vertices and everything could all be unified back through this simple concept here, which is you've got a right triangle that projects up to this higher dimensional object. We haven't known how to do that exactly, and now we do. So now this is basically giving us all the shapes that are possible in higher dimension. Okay, so what does this mean? So you've got, with the right triangle, you have a geometric mean, you have an arithmetic mean, and you also have a differential mean that are referenced in each of the sides of that right triangle. And I'll show you a clip of a short video that can illustrate this for you in a very simple way.
You know, you often send us sources that really challenge what we think we know. But today we are taking on a claim that is so ambitious, it tries to rewrite centuries of foundational geometry. We're going all the way back to Plato's solids.
All the way back. And if you've ever held a perfectly formed object, like a crystal or maybe a dodecahedron from a game, you've probably wondered why these specific shapes? Why are they so stable?
Right. How do we even classify them?
And historically, the approach has always been, well, observational. We find a shape, we count its vertices, its edges, its faces.
And then you check the math. You make sure it all adds up and satisfies some core rule.
Exactly. We classify the geometry after the fact. But this new mathematical framework we're diving into today, the Grant projection theorem, it completely inverts that whole process.
It says you don't find the shapes, you generate them. And the starting point for this entire universe of three-dimensional complexity is just a simple two-dimensional right triangle.
That's the deterministic engine,
Right.
a Pythagorean triple. And our mission today is really to unpack the source material and understand the three sort of deterministic stages of this projection.
So how the sides of that flat little triangle can predict the entire 3D structure.
The whole thing, the number of corners, the type of faces it has to have, and the total complexity of its edges.
And here's the absolute kicker, the biggest claim we have to tackle in this deep dive. Euler's formula, that bedrock of topology, right? The idea that vertices minus edges plus faces must equal 2.
That VE plus F equal 2. That's not some external rule you have to check at the end.
Yeah.
The generation process described by this triangle automatically forces the final shape.
So let me just show you here one thing real quick. The reason why this is so profound is because you can actually use this to factor a number. So a number could be a geometric mean value. And the way you solve the geometric mean value as its factors is you convert it into a right triangle. And you might remember quadratic functions to be able, and quadratic equations to be able to factor.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you'll be teaching your
Yeah.
kids that again soon, I'm sure. But basically, the way you solve for the two factors is you could take, in a right triangle formation of it, the hypotenuse minus the base. So C minus A and C plus A. Those become the two factors. So let's say you have a 5, 12, 13 triangle. Let's test this out. A 5, 12, 13 triangle, you would take the longest side 13, subtract the shortest side 5. That gives you 8 as one of the factors. The other factor would be the longest side plus the shortest side, which would be 18. And 8 times 18 should equal 12 squared. Does it? Yes. 8 times 18 equals 144. 144 square root is 12.
Square rooted.
You see what I'm saying? So you probably didn't
Yep.
know that every right triangle has within it a factor pair. Like you could call it like a father and mother, right? Remember, special relativity, general relativity, all of it is based on right triangles. The inverse square law is based on right triangles, right? And you'll remember that from your engineering courses, right? So basically what I found was that each one of these sides actually gives you the information necessary to give all the information associated with Euler's formula. And that was the pattern that I discovered. So I discovered a pattern that allows for projection into higher dimension for all of these things. So here are the two factors, F1, factor 1, and factor 2, C minus A, C plus A, as I just said. Okay, and then from there, it creates what we call generative means. So you have, I already told you, the geometric mean was the height of that right triangle. The arithmetic mean is the hypotenuse of that right triangle. The differential mean is the base. So side A, B, and C, we've just accounted for. But what I found is that if you actually extend that in both directions so that you have fractal representations expanding logarithmically and exponentially on both sides. So now you've got a larger triangle that has the same proportion as the triangle that you started with. And the triangle you started with becomes a tooth inside that larger structure. Think of it like a sawtooth.
So you're kind of looking at it top down sort of thing as you're propagating them out.
What happens with all those values as you go farther out? Well, what happens with all those values is it makes 9 different concentric shells. And those 9 different shells are actually mean values that we knew the first 5 of which, but we didn't know that they were just all part of the same triangle. No one thought of it like that. Okay, so the way you derive a harmonic mean is you take B squared, side B, which was in the 5, 12, 13. So the 144 divided by 13 would be the harmonic mean. And then 13 squared is 169 divided by B, 12, would give you the quadratic mean. Well, what I discovered is that there's more means. So there's a logarithmic baseline mean, there's log growth mean, there's differential quadratic mean. We didn't know these mean values. All of these values create harmonic shells, and those shells are matching the elements of the periodic table as the electron shells in chemistry.
Really?
Yep,
Wow.
100% match. So where does this go? So if what this does is it allows you now to take that information and be able to convert it into the number of, the vertex count, the face type, and the final topology. And it works perfectly. So when Euler came up with that equation of the number of vertices minus the edges plus the faces equals 2, he didn't realize that he was just describing a perfect right triangle. That's all he was doing. And that the right triangle can project into all higher dimension, not just the third dimension, but all the way to the 12th. And it ends at the 12th dimension with its recursion. It cannot, think of it as numbers themselves are folded geometry at their highest compression level as a lossless compression. And then the number unfolds into a two-dimensional object, which then gives you, like a pentagon, for example, there's a right triangle inside that houses all the information, that right triangle, for all of its higher order projections to the 12th dimension. And the number of unfolds is predetermined as well.
I mean, at this juncture in the conversation.
Stops at the 12th dimension.
Sorry.
So everyone that says that there's more dimensions, they're not really different dimensions. There's still musical notes. They max out at the end of the octave, and then you start over again. It goes back to 1. So, and the way that we determine the face composition is if all the sides of the right triangle are whole number integers, then the sides of that 3D polytope will only have triangles. If it has 2 integer sides and 1 irrational side, then it creates quadratures or squares, right? And then there's other ways that we combine those numbers. If there are 2 irrational values, then it creates pentagons. If there are 3 irrational values, then it creates hexagons as side faces. So this is basically the mechanism the universe uses to project higher topology. So now what that means is every time you draw a right triangle, somewhere, somehow, somewhere in space-time in higher dimension, that right triangle is a polytope. This is why sigils work.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, this triangle in and of itself, the right angle triangle, looks like a sigil, now that you're describing it this way, for projection, because it's kind of got this flat horizontal plane, and then you sort of look up and you've got this projection sort of falling in on it. It's, I mean, of course, profound.
Yeah, I'm not teaching this to you today from the context of science or mathematics. I'm teaching you this so that you realize that this is the language of the universe and higher order dimension.
Did you call these harmonic factors and harmonic solids, or is that what they're called?
I named them harmonic solids.
So there is
now
a tie back to the musical, element you were mentioning earlier.
Mm-hmm. It's a musical relationship for all of them. So I named them the harmonic solids. And the first one I discovered was the alphahedron. So from that, right, so I'll let you just synthesize that for a moment.
Well, how do you synthesize? I asked you about the reckoning of consciousness, and we're discovering like new things. I mean, people say it's an incredible time. I mean, and looking around in the world, sorry to sound like this, but literally when this episode's going to come out, there's all this stuff going on in Aries and people seeing a lot of destruction around them in some ways. And it's like, actually, it's a hyper creative time. I mean, look at what you're coming through with. This is insane. Hey there, Inspired Souls. I wanted to take a moment and thank all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. Everything you see around here, like I like to say, touch wood, is powered and empowered by your subscription to this podcast. It costs you nothing. It's completely free. There's a button down below. It lights up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution when I say the word subscribe. And if you can hit that button, hit that bell notification icon, it's completely free. It gives you the opportunity to support the channel so guests like this can come on and share their insights, share their wisdom. Every week, we do 2 episodes a week. And once a month, we actually gather with the guests inside the Inspired Evolution Community Circle. Here, if you start to fall in love with the content, just know that's the space for connection around the content. It's the Inspired Evolution Community Circle. We affectionately call it the Circle. The center's empty. It's not about Amrit. I'm just one of us. And once a month, we get together and we run kind of like a podcast where you guys ask the questions of the guests when they come on. We also gather once a week. I guide meditations. There's community sharing circles. If there's astrological updates, there's breath work. There's a bit of yoga. There's all sorts of cool stuff happening inside there, and lots of people meeting people in person as well. We've done our best to make several live interactive connection oriented, so it's less, there is text-based connection, absolutely, but it's this opportunity to really connect, especially as we move into this Aquarian age. Yeah, we're going to need, Aquarius rules community. We're going to need more community. It's about the I and the we. Pisces had the fish, schools of thought. This is all shifting under our feet right now. So as we're looking for tribe and connection, Inspired Evolution Community Circle, come on in, give it a whirl, yeah, and just see if it's for you. And it really supports the channel as well. So thank you so much for all of you that are part of the community and supporting the channel and this work, doing the things that it's doing in the world. Really, really, really sincerely appreciate you all. And we'd love to welcome those of you that are inspired to evolve on the inside. And I'm mentioning that as well because today's episode goes super deep, yeah, and it's conversations like this that we're having inside the circle amongst a community of peers. So if that sounds inspiring to you, do check us out, inspiredevolution.com/circle.
So let me show you this. The way we thought about dimensions was also wrong. So I was able to test this and do a zero-action Lagrangian, which is like a unequivocal proof. This is all mathematical proofs. And so I knew for a long time that somehow, some way, I was going to be getting in the information of the higher dimensional Pythagorean theory. I knew that was going to be coming in. I kind of said that to people back in 2018 and 2019.
Some part of your inner knowing and intuition.
I somehow knew. And what I'm finding is I've been including things to myself through time. I even posited in my book 3 new numbers, which I was not able to prove. I just showed that the musical relationships were there for 3 new numbers to make our base 10 system into a base 12 system, or what we call base 9 system into base 12. And that these 3 numbers would represent the antiproton, the antineutron, and the anti-electron or positron. And I was just this week able to prove them all mathematically through lemma and formal proof. So, and it was all based on this same math. So I somehow encrypted this to myself 6 years ago when I first posited that. It turned out to be exactly correct. And of course, I'm kind of wondering now, because I didn't have the benefit of any of this knowledge I now have, which I could use to prove it in a paper, an academic paper. And it's pretty mind-blowing. So, So basically, the language that we've had for geometry has been very, very limited, which is why we haven't been able to explain why the speed of light is the speed of light, why we don't understand the relationship between light and gravity, why we don't understand why mass exists the way that it does. We don't know why the mass of a proton is 1,836 times the mass of an electron. We don't know why. We just know that it is. That's all we know. And so we haven't been able to really understand a true theory of everything. And until the moment comes when we can actually decode the way the universe has done it in a pattern, then you will never figure it out. Well, the thing is, it's like an encryption obfuscation. It's like a trapdoor function in encryption. And what I'm going to show you today is exactly how that trapdoor function works and what it means for humanity and what it means for what's happening right now, because I think that's what really matters the most. So I looked at this higher dimensional aspect and I said, well, what happens if we go to the higher dimension? Can we prove the way the higher dimension actually looks? And so what I found out there is that the 120 cell, this geometry I was showing you right here, right? There's not another spatial dimension that's orthogonal to our spatial dimension. That's an incorrect way of understanding because we didn't know the generative means of being able to generate higher dimension. Now we do, the mathematics of it. It's unequivocal. And so the way we've been thinking about inner dimension and outer dimension was not exactly correct. We had some of them correct, like the 120 cell is absolutely correct. And once you understand that it's about inward recursive depth, like this, right? The 4th dimension is not outward, but inward. It's like mirrors within yourself, and it's breath. Higher dimension is directed by breath. So the access to higher dimension is accessing it all through the breath.
Going inwards.
That's why breath work has become such a big thing. I mean, breath work was not such a big thing in my world 15 years ago.
Sorry to interrupt. Does that imply that we're a projection?
We are 100% a projection.
Sorry to interrupt.
And that's where this is going. That's exactly what I'm going to tell you. I was able to prove by formal mathematical proof that this is the method of extension into higher dimension. It's like inward folds and unfolds. The maximum level of folding would be like an origami down to a right triangle in the second dimension, and then even one more fold beyond that becomes the number itself. It's like a folding. And if you have an origami thing that starts off as like a little right triangle, you unfold it, you unfold it, you unfold it, and then finally you run out of paper.
Robert, what you're saying is that there is more structural integrity on the inside than there is on the outside.
Yes. Well, it's actually equal. It's just it's not in our perception that it's the same thing. We just don't understand that because we think the world around us, we can associate more with our inner world because it's us. We know it's my body. I have flesh and bone. But we tend to think that the outer world is separate from us because we don't realize that we're just part of a larger organism. It's funny. I had my my first mushroom psilocybin experience was a trip. It was a super trip.
By definition. Yeah.
I was standing on this wall in a palace in India, looking at the river Ganges. I mean, of all places, which I'd never been to before, but I was in this place, standing over, looking over this huge landscape. And I could see the cows and everything on the banks of the river and the people bathing and all this. And then all of a sudden, I start to zoom out and start to see the full castle that I'm standing on the wall of. And I'm becoming a smaller and smaller dot as I'm zooming further and further out. And then I can see India. Then I can see the whole world. Then I can see, like, other planets. I'm zooming past Jupiter. And then I'm zooming past the whole solar system. Then I see a whole, like, bunch of solar systems. And then I see, the whole zodiac. And I see the entire Milky Way galaxy. And then I start seeing galaxy clusters, so multiple galaxies. And I pull all the way out. And then all of a sudden, there's darkness for a while. And then I see like what looks like a cuticle in a thumb. But the thumb is gigantic, and I'm zooming further and further out. And all of a sudden, it's a giant hand of a giant. And then I realize that the giant was me. And what I just explained to you is exactly what the mathematics is showing. And that means that all of the cells within my body, the X number of trillions of cells that I have, 70-something trillion cells, they all have elements. And each one of those elements are actually tiny miniature galaxies. And I proved that too. I actually did spectral analysis. You know what spectral analysis is, right? Where
it does ring a bell.
Cosmos, if you look out in the cosmos and you want to see, okay, we want to know what's out in the cosmos and what are the elements that are out there. We can tell by the certain spectral lines that show up in the outer cosmos what type of element is out there. We know where there's pockets of hydrogen. We know where there's pockets of helium. And these spectral lines show up in the world around us. I'll show you what I mean. So these are the spectral lines of hydrogen. Right. So what does hydrogen look like? Hydrogen looks like this right here. Now, these are nanometers of light, right? And then you have the absorption spectrum. Okay, this is a metaphor for you. You have an individual spectral emission and spectral absorption because your DNA is totally unique, even though it's only 1% different than chimpanzees, right? That difference makes you totally unique, not only from chimpanzees, but from all other human beings that ever existed. So you have your own unique spectral emission line. So if we look out in the cosmos, we know that this line of purple that's exactly, about 400 nanometers and about 405 nanometers probably, and then 430 nanometers, and then something like 590 nanometers, right? Or 490 nanometers, excuse me. And then 600 and call it, it must be about 660 nanometers.
20.
When we see that signature of light emission, we know that it's hydrogen. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you could also look at the absorption, which is every other color, and then those lines of emission have now been omitted. They're just like black spaces. This is when I say you are X and your universe around you is 1 over X. Because that's exactly the mathematics of this.
I did an interview with a near-death experienced gentleman yesterday, and it was profound. He said when he was on the other side, the light it drove him nuts because he wanted to go back, touch wood, because he said here the light comes from without and we can see. There, everything he saw, the light was coming from within.
That's right. Here we have a black backdrop. There, it's a white backdrop, like incandescent light. So you could do this with every element, literally, right? So you could do this for carbon, for, all the major. So if I did hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen. So these are the building blocks of what? DNA. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. Right? This is what makes up the nucleotide pairs. So if we look at these lines, we know this is exactly what they look like. Look at that, right there. So here we go. These are the exact lines of that you can see on the right side there. These are the exact lines of hydrogen emission, then carbon absorption versus carbon emission, then oxygen absorption versus oxygen emission. So now you see how this combination of these things and their amplitudes could make up some visible representation of you.
A projection.
A projection. Right. And so the world around you would be all the colors that are not you, reflected back to you as a projection. And we live on the edge of this zone of conscious and unconscious mind, like a black hole and a white hole. And that we are basically perceiving the world around us as separate than us, but it's not really separate from us. It's just literally a projection of us. So what I discovered, which was, pretty crazy cool, was that, and among many, many, many other things, is that there is a relationship using the same types of right triangles, what are called primordial or basically like primitive. They're called primitive right triangles. That means they're reduced to their smallest expression, right? So a 5, 12, 13 is the second, but the 3, 4, 5 is the first. What I realized is that all of those create what we would call the forces. Every one of those right triangles are actually the unification of the forces along a conic. And I'll show you that too.
The forces.
So the forces, like what are the forces? We think of the forces being electromagnetism, right? Electricity. Gravitational force. We think of the strong, basically strong force of nuclear binding.
And the weak force.
We think of the weak electro force, right? So electro-weak force. And what I've been able to unite is all of those forces under this same Pythagorean triple construct. Literally, they're all hidden inside of hyperbolic math. And that was just not known or not understood to the world.
So we had Eileen McCusick on the podcast as well, trying to educate us on plasma. This starts to open up into some of this stuff in terms of the mediums that we're floating in, I think. But I don't want to digress us.
Because that's what's coming next, is manipulation of matter, because we now understand how to do that. And so because I've been getting so much of this stuff in so quickly, I've started to do all this stuff on AI, because otherwise I would never, ever get it done in time for what needs to be done.
Well, there's also that when the student's ready, the teacher appears, but also when, the artisan's ready, he forges the tools. It's pretty cool that, the way AI is being wielded to be able to support some of this stuff that you're uncovering, right?
Absolutely. All right. So basically what I've been able to find is that there's a relationship called the unit-conic, right, architecture. And what it does is it gives us all the information necessary for all of the forces and also the sixth dimension. So the unit-conic architecture. So think of this as a hyperbola. All these right triangles are forming all the information necessary to give us all of our mathematical and fundamental constants, every one of them. So there's 3 zones along the conic. And so we've been trying to find the way that all these mathematical constants relate to each other for a long time. Stephen Hawking said, you can't have a unified theory unless you understand how the constants are working together. Well, what I just discovered is that all of the constants are formed alongside the conic, which is the inside of a torus field, right? It looks like a holy grail, literally holy, right? So this would be the way to look at it, like that, right? And so effectively what I found was that every one of the constants shows up in a zone along that conic from the central, singularity point. And the only way you can see the pattern for this, which is a very simple pattern, the relationship is simply the inverse square root of the last constant becomes the next one. The reason why we never saw this pattern was because we were trying to look at it just at like pi is 3.14159.262.535, when actually we should have been doing it all in sine and cosine values in what we call theta rapidity. Because that's
kind
where
of also from the inside rather than the outside also. Yeah, interesting.
Exactly. So we needed to now look at it from the inside rather than from the outside. And then when we realized that, then we realized that there is a fixed pattern that gives you exactly the location using this exact equation right here, right? To tell you exactly where the previous and where the next constant would be, and to infinite level of accuracy on the decimal extension. So I was able to derive every major math constant, dimensionless, as values along this conic relationship, all the way out to 521 digits of accuracy for each constant. And it's not form-fitted. This was all done without free parameters, and all the physics is based on free parameters, 19 free parameters they use to fudge factor things. There's these like fudge factor numbers, they don't really understand what they do or how they came to be, but it's like they came up with a value and they're like, okay, if I multiply this by this, then I get, the cosmological constant or whatever.
So these basic fundamentals numbers turn into triangles, turn into the forces.
Yes.
Do you see there being like these forces then it's somehow, I mean, I've got to ask this question, that there is generative forces, obviously, because it seems like that some of these are generative from within, and then there must be benefically generative forces that's propelling reality into creation, and we're sort of being able to see that. Yeah, so they must be self-generative in some way. That's part one of the question mark. Part two of the question, are there less than harmonic sort of destructive ones?
No, they're all harmonic. The only one that seems a bit off is gravity itself. And there's a reason for that, why it's off. It's just at a half integer mark. So each one of the conic positions, right, are holding integer positions along the conic in theta value. And those convert. So all of a sudden, what we think of as a super complex equation for pi becomes a very simple equation for pi. Like super simple equation. And so what happens is, and I'll show you, it's like this. So we took 57 disconnected ingredients. So they're all the constants of the universe right here. Simple, right? But now we then place those into theta values. And these are the theta values on the baseline right here. And this is exactly the relationship of the proton mass versus the electron mass. This is the fine structure constant. This is the golden ratio, right? These are all values like pi and tau, and they occupy positions along this line of the conic, okay? The conic is this, it's like the stem of a wine glass. Think of it like that. And what we found is that there are three zones within it. The first zone gives you all the forces, the coupling strengths, and the mass splittings. The second zone, which is logarithm 2, up to this root 10 value that's related to the cosine of hyperbola. And that gives you all the transcendental operators and the fundamental links. So transcendental constants like pi and Euler. And then zone C is the product line, which gives you everything up to the square root of 10. That's all mass hierarchies, cosmological constant, the Hubble constant, cosmic scales, and compound constants. So what this does is it's like a machine that creates it all based on this one simple equation right here. So this one simple equation from the last constant value derives the next constant value for the forces in zone A, zone B, as mathematical generators or constants, And zone C becomes what we actually observe in the universe around us.
Oh my God, it's cardinal, fixed, and mutable all over again. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's what I'm saying to you. So look, I mean,
Stop
you can see
talking.
here, right? It's wild.
Sorry, please.
No,
Sorry, don't actually stop talking. Sorry, my bad. My bad. My gregariousness gets the better of me. Touch wood.
so look, you start with a seed on this conic, and then what's interesting about it is that you've got gravity that shows up at 3/2. So it's sitting, that's 1.5, right? So it's sitting, and the rest of these, electromagnetism, the weak force, time itself, and the strong force and dark energy, all sit in the integer positions along the baseline of the conic values. If this doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what could. Because, it's so compelling, it's like ridiculous. And so therefore, what you start to understand is that there are, another way to look at this would be like this. So these are all the constants that are along the conic that are following that exact same pattern. And when you convert them into their non-conic values, they come out to the perfect irrational values. And here they all are. Dark energy, strong force, time, weak force, electromagnetism, gravity, Apéry's constant, Euler-Mascheroni, and the seed. And that's just for the first zone. And so this is what the actions in the universe are. This is what the universe is building. So it's building the mathematical constant relationships, right? As well as, this is the cosmological constant right here. These are all the numbers that we've not understood how they relate to each other. Feigenbaum, which, is supposed to be a chaos number. And from this, we can actually even find for numbers that we don't even know the actual equation that makes them. We just know the number exists, like Feigenbaum. We don't have it beyond 10, 11 digits of accuracy. We don't have a closed form equation for it yet. We can derive it now because we know for it to occupy this position along the conic, it has an automatic translation into our base 10 system. Here's what gets created. The Bohr radius, the mantissa, Hubble constant. I mean, all these relationship of mass, muon versus electron, baryon versus lepton. And these are exact values infinitely. At least up to the level that we have that our measurement can actually do. Right? So in some cases, we only have 12 digits of accuracy because Large Particle Hadron Collider can only measure to 12 digits of accuracy. Well, we can tell you now the next hundreds of digits out to infinity that the measurements will be able to get to eventually. We know what they'll be.
Back to zone A. Why is gravity a little bit off?
Gravity is the only one that's off, and that's why it's been throwing everyone off. Right? So it's because gravity is occupying this position that is unique. So you've got the force, right? The force supply, which is giving us all the forces along the conic, then the geometric toolkit, and then the created universe. Dude, this is too damn perfect.
It's a great visual.
It's literally too perfect. And so then from that, I was able to then take it and say, okay, well, what about all those forces? What do they look like? What's it look like if I put it in an actionable kind of format? Right, that we can look at and see how it's going to show up. And here it is. So the reason I'm showing all of this to you is because this is going to be having a big impact on consciousness.
Just before you jump off this screen, Robert, if I can just say something while you've got this on screen. One of my favorite teachings on the word Om, I mean, with the Om symbol as well, there's the 3, which is really interesting in this conversation, and it's how it sort of dovetails everything into the unified one. But there is this touchwood. One of the teachings from the mystics says, Om is the sound of the mechanical whir of the motor that is projecting this Maya, this illusion, this reality. It's way deeper than illusion, actually. But anyway, this reality into existence. You can connect back to the motor just by meditating on the word Om, Om, Om. It takes you all the way back. And I can't just help but see sort of that. It looks like a projection. Anyway, I just wanted to add that in there. It just felt when this was on screen, it was just too fitting. Touch wood.
Oh, it's super wild, right? There's no doubt about it. So this is for the forces. And each one of these is the right triangles that all have factor interlocking chains that connect them. So each one of them is telling us exactly how light is separating out and creating from electricity only. There's only one force, electricity. And from that is coming all of our forces. And each of those forces is tied directly to these right triangles. And so the relationship is, so the first one that you see is electromagnetic, right? The first is actually a 3, 4, 5. It's before it's our form. We're not seeing it. But then once it breaks out of harmonic collapse and 137 emerges, then you have electromagnetic, which is this first 5, 12, 13. The 5, 12, 13 is electromagnetism. Gravity becomes the 8, 15, 17 triangle. That's the proportion of it right here, projected into octonions. Octonions are 8 positions like mirror reflections. So then the weak force becomes this. And this is the relationship of the 7, 24, 25 Pythagorean triple. And the transition is time. So time is just a function. And actually, what's interesting about time is it actually only creates a void space. The void space allows us to create with our consciousness the exact triangle of our belief of how long it should take to perform anything. It's our belief that is actually defining that more than anything else. And it's actually a function of gravity. And then the strong nuclear force is actually not nuclear binding energy. It's a geometric constraint that determines why when you add to isotopes more neutrons, they don't have enough mass. So it's a 98.3% relationship when you add neutrons together. Instead of getting 1.0079 times 2, if one of them weighs 1.0079, you end up with 1.00, 6 something. And for the second one. And the reason for that is not that we thought it was, it's because it converts into E equals mc squared and the energy dissipates and is lost, right, as a result of the binding. And so we call this nuclear binding. Actually, it's not. It's just a function of sphere packing. The sphere packing relationship is 61 over 60. It's trying to fit 61 spheres into a place that fits only 60. And so that relationship becomes the 0.983, and it worked for every isotope value when we projected it out. So what this is showing is exactly what happens when light emerges. When you're looking at all of these elements together, it's coming out just like this.
So that extra bit's the energy it's taking to kind of hold itself, give itself
Yes.
its, interesting, holding space for itself. Wow.
Yep. And so when we look at the constants, also the constants are exactly on that conic line, and they show up in the 8 positions around that, the conic in octonian projection. So 8 positions around it. So each of the constants show up along this line, and exactly the positions that I said that they would. But then that's when I said, well, wait a minute, let's see if there's actually a relationship then directly to the periodic elements. So here you have the periodic elements. And you can actually break them into the exact geometries that project. So we know that carbon is related to a cube. So what's the exact form that projects carbon as a cube? Well, we can see it down here. And the relationship, right, these are harder to see on the bottom, but this is a cube. And then the underlying, so think of it as 2 interference patterns that are working with each other, right, and against each other. And that by having this layering of interference patterns, it creates an illusion of solidity.
Back to where you started the show. Yep.
That's right. And so, and these are the electron shells that match exactly perfectly, right, the periodic elements that I was telling you about, the electron shells. And so what is the right triangle that creates this?
Whoa.
And what is the music that it creates? Well, the music is right here, the exact Hertz frequencies, and here's the spectral analysis of this. So we know these are all the colors of carbon, and we know these are the musical notes of it as well. And that the isotopes is that same 61 over 60 relationship of what you can actually have when a geometry can close related to an isotope maintaining its stability. It's all based on its Pythagorean third dimensional stability. Right. And so this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle projected. The 3, 4, 5 projected into this dimensional space becomes the carbon atom. So the entire world, think of it like a virtual reality, is made from right triangles. And by the way, when we make virtual reality worlds, it is made exclusively from right triangles already.
Tessellated.
It's the only shape that fits everything in the universe. Doesn't matter how many dimensions you go into. So now you could look at nitrogen. Nitrogen is still also a cube. And so then as it goes along the carbon family, it goes up octaves. So carbon then up octaves to silicon. So the next shape now becomes a 5, 12, 13 triangle right here. And its shape is a cube octahedron, which is right here. And what gives it its mass is this shape down here, which is the projected form of the 5, 12, 13 or the alphahedron.
So it seems like what we've mapped here is what we've. Sorry, giving myself way too much credit in this conversation. Sorry, bro. sorry, my apologies. Sincerely, just deeply riding this current with you. Well, it seems like what you've mapped here is the projection.
Yes.
What about on the other side, hard-based reality? Is that there as well, or is that part of this? Where does that lie?
Yeah.
Is
So,
that, or is it all? Is this it all? Like,
well, on the other side of it, it would be the inverted world like you were talking about with this near-death experience guy. Think of it as you've got a world where you've got like a photograph image and then you've got a negative photograph
and
image.
this is this beautiful, so that must be like, whoa.
All the colors are just inverted.
I kind of just want to hang up the podcast now. I'm going to pick up parts of my brain. This always happens when you're here.
But see, here's the thing. So what I did is I took each one of these analyses and put them up against galaxies because I wanted to see, wait a minute, I wanted to analyze every single spiral galaxy that we know. And I was not able to find a single galaxy out of all those that were analyzed, not one in 2 trillion broke the mold.
Not bound by this.
Pythagorean triples.
So it was bound by this.
It's bound by this. So every galaxy, so that means that every galaxy is literally an element. And though that's why we have stars with different colors. Some stars are blue, some stars are green, some stars are red, some stars are yellow, because it's matching the exact way that it's looked at here on the periodic elements based on its reflection spectra and the music that it's actually playing. It is literally the harmony of the spheres. It means that you have galaxies within you that have all of the issues that we're facing, that humanity's facing, that have other Epstein version islands, that have other versions of you within you, just reflected in both directions. So that's what I meant when I said, imagine being disgusted with the government and constantly complaining about it and then realizing you've been the hand behind it all along.
Yeah, the severity of the responsibility is not getting any lighter, Robert.
So what it means is you can't change the outer world without changing the inner world. What it means is I am that, everything around me. I'm just part of literally, and by the way, I'm not the only person who said this. Max Planck said this. Niels Bohr said this. They were laughed at, but now we actually have the technology and just nobody went to look and see, oh, let's see if the spectral analysis matches all the elements. Holy shit, it does. The spectral analysis of a galaxy matches that of an element. Come on, man.
But it's also really cool that you've got the tools at your disposal to look at this stuff.
Yeah. And now with AI, it's all super accelerated because I can program. This would have taken me months and months and months to have a team of people to create all this stuff, to match all these patterns, to show that it's a perfect match. And that's why you've got all these green things. It's a match. It's a perfect match. This is matching. So silicon's got 14. And why is it 14? Because there are 14 faces on the cube octahedron. That's why it has
Just
14.
for the audience's benefit, you do cross-reference and obviously check your AI as well. Yeah.
Oh, of course. No,
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you
just for the audience. Sorry, I just have to say that for the audience's benefit. Thank you. Yeah.
like conversations? I mean, AI is probably wrong. I can't even tell you, I spend at least 95% of my time correcting
Correcting.
in
Yeah.
a context collapse. Because what happens is when you have very, very high complexity like I do, you get context collapse quite often because it loses memory when the complexity gets too high. There's a recursion, just like the universe has this recursion in higher dimension. So what I'm going to show you now is that how dimension actually works, right? So if you, but every one of the elements, look at this, all the musical notes, everything matches perfectly the known values of everything related to these elements.
Completely mapped.
Completely mapped to the nth degree. And here's those electron shells. It's all based on the generative means. And this is based on a right triangle that is a 9, 40, 41. And that's the time triangle. Every one of these was completely mapped. It's unequivocal. I would challenge any physicist in the world to poke holes in this. They won't be able to because it's just a fact and it's a pattern. But the reason why they don't want to see these types of things is because then it implies that, wait a minute, there is a designer. Oh shit. What would it be like if you realized that you have been the designer all along? How would that change how you see the world around you? There's nobody else to blame, literally. That means that all those galaxies, imagine yourself as one big universe, and all those galaxies that are within you all have duality. They all have suffering. They all have difficulty. They all have challenge. It changes the context and meaning of all of it. And it doesn't reduce your level of responsibility of anything. It dramatically increases it.
It's also you on that spectrum.
Exactly. And there's something extraordinarily beautiful about it too. I just want you to take that in for a moment because it is beautiful.
It's a lot to digest.
It's a lot to digest. And why is this all coming in right now? And I believe it did relate to 3i Atlas.
Great question.
Because it's time now. And that's why the world's becoming more and more strange and more dystopian, because we have a dramatic expansion in consciousness and a dramatic understanding increase in the order of the universe. And so as a result, every action must have an equal opposite reaction. We are the one playing hide and go seek with ourselves so that we can experience the concepts of limitation.
Are we mapping Plato's allegory of the cave in some way? I know this is a bit philosophical, but.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I'll pull
Right.
this in for you because I think, just to see the image of, a photograph and a negative version. Look at that negative version of that color photograph down there.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
what the other side looks like. It's the absorption versus the reflection.
As within, so without.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening. On the other side of the exact mathematics that Niels Bohr proved, and I'm going to finish his theory because he was correct. He just didn't have the means to be able to do it, and now we do. Niels Bohr was able to show in what's called the Bohr atom model, right? You might remember this, that he was able to predict exactly based on the frequency of hydrogen, the spectral lines that it must emit. Now we know its position, it's on a conic, and the value of it just shows up exactly in this very easy to identify pattern that's along the conic for hydrogen. So all the elements come up exactly in the perfect position for hydrogen and for all the elements. And the larger shape of it is something called the alphahedron. And the alphahedron is this geometry right here, which just came in right before Christmas. And I discovered it, and it's kind of like the shape of the Sri Yantra.
Oh, wow.
Just look at that for a minute. First of all, you'll notice it has an eye in it, with an eyelid even, right here. Here's the eyelid. Here's the eye shape. Fits perfectly in it. It's got the inner angle of 137. This is the stellated form of that. And it's got a golden wreath around the eye. This is like the Eye of Horus. And this is the shape. When you take all of the elements of the periodic table together, they all fragment into this larger shape. And the stellated form is the radiative form or radiational form. The convex form is the gravitative form.
I need some help reconciling a little bit, if that's okay, Robert. What about within the actual atoms themselves? There used to be that we used to place the electrons sort of at the maximum repulsion points, and then afterwards we brought it into probabilistic fields. Where does probability, like, what are probabilistic fields like? Because this seems very fixed and determined, or
Yeah, every time we keep adding another name for another particle that's smaller, at some, 10 to the 15 order of magnitude smaller, or 10 to the negative 15 smaller, it's actually just another version of the same thing reflected at the next smaller scale. And it keeps going, it never stops. So they'll always find that. And that's why there's always, it always comes in threes. And it's always the same relationship. If we had the measurement systems to be able to detect that scale, I guarantee you the mass of those particles will be 1,831 times their version of the element as well. It's just a proton, electron. And if we think about our solar system has 9 planets. That
but the
means that
location, but the
as fluorine. Fluorine
But the
is not.
location of the electrons is discernible based on this theory, whereas at the moment the model of the atom suggests that it's probabilistic and could be anywhere within around here or around there or around
That's
here.
right. This theory shows that the number of faces determines the actual number of protons. The number of edges determines the number of neutrons, and the number of of electrons is determined by the vertices.
Wow.
And we now know which types of elements can have more isotopes because it's all part of the same analysis.
And this is when I've asked you in the past about destiny and free will. You said something quite profound. You said destiny is just the free will of the higher order.
Yeah, that's right. Destiny is just the free will of the higher self. And we've just not known that. So, but I mean, it's like so astoundingly beautiful. As I've gone deeper and deeper into this, it's not because I've necessarily wanted to go that much deeper. It's just I feel that it's just coming through now. It's just one of those things that is meant to happen. And 3i Atlas brought this. This is what 3i Atlas brought.
Whoa. What do you mean by that?
Well, when 3i Atlas came on November 11th, right? And the architect had told me that there's going to be this big thing and that its payload was geometry. If you go back to my post, I actually said last August, before I got any of this stuff, I wasn't getting much math downloads at that time. I posted it on Instagram that the payload for 3i Atlas, when it came on November 11th and made its closest approach, was going to actually be what? Geometry. That's what I wrote.
And you've been in hermit mode the exact same time it's been around. I'm noticing now.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, I could show you the post that I posted on Instagram on that. It's kind of insane because somehow I knew this was, I guess, going to happen. And this is what the architect had told me. Look, arrival 11/11 on 25 at 8:08 p.m. And that's when these downloads really, really started for me. And it said what it contains. This was posted on, actually not February. This was actually on August 1st. I don't know why it's showing up as February 18th on here, but it was posted on
Might be the
August.
most recent comment back.
That's because this other guy posted it. That's why. It's not my
Oh.
post. Some other guy posted it on February 18th. This was posted on August 1st. And it said it does not carry beings, it carries geometry. Encoded within it, a memory seed of a galactic civilization whose oversoul is partially braided with Earth's. Crystalline structure capable of entraining DNA templates. So you remember around that time, we had all kinds of crazy freaking Aurora Borealis, right? The Aurora Borealis came really super far south in the United States. And if we go back and look at that, so it was like in the fall, so November, it was like wild, like super. Oh, and look, the biggest, by the way, the geomagnetic storm that we had, the biggest geomagnetic storm was on November 11th. Exactly what I said it was going to be, like no joke. Look at that. Yeah. So U.S. saw vivid northern lights as far south as Florida. on November 11th. That's when all the stuff started coming in. It was kind of insane.
Wow. It's not lost on me that this November 11th is when we're going to be with yourself in Egypt as well. It's yeah,
I mean, look at that.
really trippy.
It was literally like the geometry was just coming in. It was like raining geometry all the way down to Southern California. We don't see northern lights here.
Yeah, we had them in Melbourne in Australia as well. It was unprecedented.
And this
Wow.
happened exactly on November 11th. And there was the biggest stuff. We just look, and I said it was going to be November 11th. That's crazy, right? Like literally. And so when was or what was the largest solar flare of 2025? So the X class, it was 5.1. It was actually unleashed its strongest. It was actually on the 11th was the first part of it. It was all part of the same one that just happened over midnight. But that's what it was. Literally, that's when all the geometry started coming in. Yeah, the sun produced a 5.1 X solar flare, which is the strongest flare recorded up to that date in 2025. So it continued for the next day or so. November 11th, the sun erupted with a powerful X 5.1 class. It was the biggest one all year.
That's interesting because perihedron was also around December 12th or something. So it was on the other side at that point.
Well,
So already,
and that's when it was perihelion, is when I got the higher order projections of geometry. So the higher dimensional projections of geometry. And so what I'm saying is that I think that that's what this was, that this has all been timed perfectly for us to get when we got it. And, kind of it is what it is.
well, it's
And
also, I mean, back to what we were saying before. I know I've used the word severity a few times in this conversation, but also given the time that we're in and looking at the world that we're at. So, I mean, some part of me is feeling from you that this was quite a benevolent, benefic sort of visitor that we've received, which we were probably always going to receive at this time. But what I'm hearing from you is we needed it potentially to even unlock some geometry, some logic, some rationale for us to be able to really grok on a deeper level the importance of the above and below and how much we have to do the internal work within. Is that just my lens on the world that it always ends up doing inner work, or is this what you're feeling too?
no, it's all there. There is only, even the outward journey was actually an inward journey.
So,
There is only inner work. There's not outer work. That's my point. It's
wow.
it's just all a fractal that shows up in the same types of places, right? I mean, that's really what it is.
Can I ask you, Robert, 11/11/9 is when it came through. I mean, this year, will be 11/11/1, we'll be in Egypt together. But 11/11/9 seems to imply like sort of gateways into a completion. Is that part, am I drawing parallels where there aren't any, or is 3i Atlas coming through part of a completion and a beginning maybe in some ways then?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm absolutely sure it is.
Hmm,
I I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I could tell you
feel it.
that's what I would believe. And yeah, I mean, it's super wild what's happening.
Can I ask you a personal question, Robert, if that's okay?
Go ahead.
And I mean this with all of the conversation that we've just had to stand on the shoulders of that. Who are you becoming?
I guess I'm just becoming me. And what I've learned through all of this is that no one of us is any better or more important than anyone else. We're all just projections of each other. No one of us has more darkness than someone else. It's just some people are not aware of their darkness fully, or they haven't integrated it. And so that's what causes them to spin out of control. And I guess the best way I could describe it is this. Let me show you this. So let's assume we start off with basic geometry, and that what I'm saying is actually plausible, right? Which is that the first dimension, a 1D line, you could take any number associated with that. You could look at the number 12, for example. 12, got 12 line segments that are just broken up, and that becomes a one-dimensional line. Now we turn that into a two-dimensional object by making a dodecagon. So now look, there's a right triangle inside of that just goes to the center point, and this is all about ratio and proportion, to the center point of each side and then to the center point of, or the centroid as it's called, in the center of this polygon, right? And there's a relationship of hypotenuse and height. And they're labeled backwards here, but this should be 10 and the longer side should be 10.35. And the proportion difference between the two creates a logarithmic spiral. So that's giving you an exact value of like 1.0 something, right? And that creates the pitch of the spiral. All the galaxies matched this perfectly, and all the elements matched it perfectly when we knew what their right triangular projection was. So their spiral pitch, the speed, and the age of the galaxy could all be now known, tied to also the life of the element. The element will have a half-life, like isotopes. So taking this triangle, now that we know the method to project it in a higher dimension, we can take these proportions from the right triangle and project it in the third dimension into this. And then I can rotate it with time, and it looks like this. And then I can use the higher dimension, the higher dimensional framework that we proved with the other paper I just showed you, to show that the fifth dimension is actually when breadth is integrated with geometry. All the information is just inside those generative mean values, going out with the larger triangle. When I showed you, I discovered these 5 different mean values. This information gives you all the information you need to perceive this. Now, as we go into higher dimension, you just give more complexity and more rotations on the vertices of breadth, all the way up to the 12th dimension, where it hits a maximum recursion.
Is some part of your response I am breath?
Yeah. And that's what I am that I am is. It's meant to be breathed. Yahweh. 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 It's not meant to be spoken because it's meant to be breathed. And that is kind of the whole point, which is a trick, because it's like, wow, man, you got to be kidding me. This is just insanity that we didn't understand this before.
It's so beautiful, Robert. I can't even begin to put in words. I probably haven't spoken to it the whole way through because it's very difficult to articulate how beautiful this is.
Well, think of it like this. When you ask me the question, who am I? And who are you? Who are all of us?
And who are you becoming? Yeah.
This is what we're becoming. The 12th dimensional form of us. We're just a dimensionally limited avatar that's been stuck in this. And now we're moving into this. But eventually we'll be back to this.
What does it do for the structure itself to be aware of, to be more deeply aware of its own inner nature? Allows it to continue to find out more about itself, I imagine, than...
Yeah. Yeah. So here's another way of looking at this. Also, here's a soccer ball.
Mm.
So this is what's called an truncated icosahedron. Happens to be the shape exactly of COVID virus and how water clusters and everything. You get the fifth dimension, it looks like this. Breathing in and out. And you'll start to notice the vertices start rotating in omnidirectional position.
So good.
You get all the way to the 12th dimension, which is maximum recursion before it goes back to singularity. It looks like this. Literally looks like you're looking at something in a petri dish with a microscope.
The model looks like it's breathing too, though. Breath, back to your point. It is. Yeah.
And the fifth dimension is when geometry comes to life and we realize that it's living because it's us, it's consciousness. Geometry is the coherence of consciousness.
That was one of my questions for you today. This feels very matrixy. Do we? Oh, let me ask a question. Wait. Do we transcend the matrix? Or is the only way out is through? What's going on here?
You are the matrix.
There's no transcending, there's nowhere to go, there's no way through. It is what it is, what it is, what it is, what it is.
This is why you have to realize that we are the one playing hide and go seek with ourselves. Mankind only suffers because he takes too seriously what the gods made for fun. We are not this flesh. We are not this emanation. This is just a stop along the road back to self. We're going through an infinite recursion loop so that the one can experience what it's like to experience limitation at differing degrees of limitation, which is designed around a zodiac and a backdrop of a play. You could say the zodiac is just like the set of a play.
My limitations are my service to the divine. What, Robert? Did you just say that?
And so what I realized, and this is the thing I could end it on very beautifully, is that actually the what we think of as the golden number is not really special at all. It's like not really special. And that every number can now be golden. And I'll show you what I mean. Sorry for blowing your mind.
Don't you dare ever apologize. It's been too long between drinks, as they would say. It's 5 months too long. Wow, so rich, Robert. Thank you so much for being here.
So, I mean, I know this has been a lot of numbers, a lot of math for people to kind of absorb. But actually, it's like once you kind of understand this, then it really changes the way you perceive virtually everything. Like literally everything. And that's what's, I guess, kind of nutty about this is that we go into this different mode of how we perceive the world around us. And just, I mean, give you an idea. I've written over 2,000 pages.
Whoa.
2,000 pages since November. And
You know
it's
you
an
sound like the
entire
mad scientist, yeah? Said, you know you sound like the mad scientist, yeah?
Yeah, I can only guess, right? But, you know, if you just look at some of this, then you realize, holy crap, galaxies as macro elements.
What you were saying earlier.
And the proof of it. Literally from the spin, from the speed, the perfect match to the right triangle relationships of these same Pythagorean triples that create all the forces. This is the unification. It's literally the harmonic theory of everything. And it comes out to absolute perfection. So this is mathematical precision of the physical world, and there's a precision bridge that's related to these harmonics that give us a perfect match for a color and pitch. So this is Hubble periodic continuous spectrum that shows that the color of the galaxy and its spectral analysis is exactly like that of the periodic elements, and the tightness of its spin and its electron positions is exactly identical too. So this is the primordial base, which is hydrogen, which is based on the 3-4-5 triangle. And all the electron shell positions are perfectly matching this. And even our Milky Way is iron. It's a giant atom of iron. And I believe our solar system is going up into the silicon family. That's why we have 9 planets. I don't believe Pluto. I mean, that's a bullshit thing. Pluto is a planet. And so we are fluorine. We're now jumping up to the next octave, and we're going into magnesium. So pretty soon, and it's already kind of happened, they've already announced that there's new large planets that are not been found before that are in the Kuiper belt. It's the 10th, 11th, and 12th electrons. We're literally just that. So this is the structure of it, and it was a perfect match again.
Harmonic theory of everything.
Yeah.
Theory of everything.
It's all harmonic theory. So 44 orders of magnitude. So you got electron shells, the cascade factors, galactic scale. The chemical valence becomes spiral arm count. The emission spectrum becomes star-forming spectrum. The Fe, the iron 56, binding max, which is an isotope. and the SBC stability, right? Stellations are 26. The alphahedron has 26 vertices. That's why iron sits where it does. And magic numbers, it's basically the V stellated sequence. So all of this just comes back to its identity. This is not analogy. Each of the galaxies that we perceive are all, every one of them, elements. So that means you're literally populated within you with planets, whole civilizations that come and go within you. Wow. And when you start thinking about the esoteric traditions and Hinduism and everything, this is kind of exactly what they said. Is it not? I mean, it's exactly what they said.
That's what they
And
knew.
it's
The
mind-blowing.
thing that trips me up, because I wonder if they were actually able to, because they knew the distances between things by going inwards. That, like, when we've now been able to externally somewhat map the inwards, it makes me wonder the sort of awarenesses and the technologies and the consciousnesses they were carrying is just, yeah, profound.
Yeah, it's super profound, man. Super profound.
But it's beautiful being able to, I have to say, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for putting in the groundwork over the last however many months. I feel like we get to revel in the fruits of your hermitude over here.
It's all
You've
that
come
is.
out of the cave with some shiny things, mate.
Yeah, I know. I was like talking with Matthias's team, like, oh man, I've been getting all this stuff and it relates to the periodic elements and everything. And everyone's like, whoa, what are you getting? I'm like, here's what I'm getting. Harmonic theory of everything. It's all based on harmonics. And it's all based on this simple equation. That's the simple equation of the universe. The perfect square. It's a Vitruvian man standing inside the perfect square. X squared minus y squared equals 1. And it's this. Operates as a closed inference pipeline. Electricity is the sole force. And off of electricity forms this conic, and that's from the real value of the imaginary number. That was the doorway into all of this.
-1 over the square root of 10.
Yeah. So square root of 10 to the power of -1 is equal to I, the imaginary number. I taught you that last time.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the way that it's actually set up. It's all standing waves that are all from conic. And it creates music. And those musical notes are actually all the constants that can be played as music. It's all music. The whole thing is music.
The astrology, the cells, the world, all of it.
All music, man. And this is the structure that we have in our universe. And it's super beautiful because it's like, wow, that's so gorgeous. Like, what the heck? I
Robert,
mean,
can I ask you a question for my benefit and the audience's? What is it with this awareness, like just where we are at this moment in time? What does it mean to you that, we're going to be in Egypt together at 11/11/2026? What is that like from where you are seated now? What does it feel like is going to happen in Egypt? Because I'm sure some people here are going to want to come. It's yourself, it's Matthias, little old me will be there, touch wood. And yeah, I'm really inspired for in the back of this conversation what that implies for what's coming up at that time. In your awareness, what does it feel like? I know you've got a
look,
few things happening in your calendar before then, but what does that moment in time feel like for you?
I don't even know. All I know is it's going to be epic, right? Because there's every single trip that I've gone on has been this crazy, magical ride. I know the same is true for Matthias, and we've done many trips together. And um, and it's not just us that are going through this. There are so many other people around the world. They're all doing their work, and they're all valid. The way that consciousness is organizing itself is so beautiful because it's happening on its own. It's self-organizing. And it's not because of hierarchy, and it's not because of control. We're going into a new age where humanity is not going to have government and leaders anymore the way we've had. It's a new model. I'm not going to be the leader. Thank God. I have no desire to be a leader. I could be a leader. That's fine. We're all going to be leaders. But
Well,
there's
that's the
not,
Aquarian way, right? No hierarchies. It's like the I and the we. It's a really
when I took
interesting model.
Matthias and Zach Bush and all these guys over to Egypt in late 2023, I was thrilled when I lost my voice because I got shocked inside the king's chamber in the sarcophagus. I completely lost my voice. Like I had a download that gave me radiation, like literal radiation. I had a Geiger meter with me. It was Billy Carson's. He gave it to me. I measured it. My radiation at my throat was out of control. And I couldn't speak for a week. And that was one of the greatest blessings ever because it allowed everyone to be a leader without anyone having to be the leader. And it was so symbiotic and so beautiful and simpatico that that's just the way that I think we're meant to live in this world. We don't need people to be subjugating other people. This whole age that we've been in is about extraction, taking from other people. We don't need any of that shit, man. We're all sovereign. We're all divine. We are all that 12-dimensional form of us just playing this game that's meant to be enjoyed.
Is that potentially why politics and everything around us feels so toxic at the moment? Because it's ready just to be scraped off the top and people's sovereignty is like, now's the time? Is that why? It's like eating itself in some ways.
Eating itself. And it's getting ridiculous, right? It's almost like a caricature now. Not almost, it is like a caricature.
You
And
only see the toxic parts of the whole thing on the external at the moment.
pretty much, I mean, it's pretty messed up at the moment. That's for sure. So, I mean, it's like wild the way that this has all happened, but it's definitely happening. It's disintegrating. Everything is just disintegrating.
Because I do find myself sort of reminding some of my closer friends that are like, this time in the world, and I'm like, yeah, but we were always, like, a lot of us that have, been of a certain propensity, let's say that, have asked for, things to get better. We've often asked for things to get better. I mean, it's in the name of the inspired evolution, touch wood. And yeah, I'm just, maybe some things like a bit Shiv Shakti, like we need to free up some bandwidth to open up new bandwidths to put in new things that are much more servient to the species, touch wood. Maybe I'm a bit too optimistic, I don't know. But our faith surely has some thing to count for in around all of this, I'm sure, touch wood. So it's interesting sort of watching the times that we're moving into, and where we are at right now. And maybe, some things do need to disintegrate for new things to integrate in, to get us to the places that we need to get to.
Well, that's right. A tree falls in the forest and it generates new life. And I think it's just time for the shift to happen. And that's what's happening. It found its place. We're just not going to be the way we've been before. I think that's very obvious. And I think just as any government right before just like Iran, right? When they were having their revolution stuff happening a few weeks ago, right? Before we had this, war begin, what was the government doing? They were filtering all kinds of money out, right? They're getting all of their oligarchs are basically transferring all their money out in private jets and everything because they had to create kind of backup plans in case in a way, I don't know that the attack by the U.S. was actually helpful to the freedom fighters in Iran. I mean, I don't know enough about it to really comment. But what I will say is that clearly they were trying to get their money out because that's what happens with despotic rulers whenever they're about to get ousted. They send all their money away, they try to get out and try to find their landing pad. And I think that's what's happening right now in the United States. I think we have leaders that, I think clearly a major aspect in why we go to war. And again, I recognize they're not separate from me. They are me. I know this. So there are aspects of myself that are unintegrated that I haven't yet fully grasped. I recognize that. I'm not blaming somebody else for this. I know that this is my own path. But what I am going to say is that right now you could see that all of a sudden we jump into this war that's now on the brink of some sort of nuclear, potential. And the truth is that the reason why we did this is more related to the Epstein files than anything else. And yes, it's completely entangled with China and everything related to Taiwan and cutting off the oil supply for China, which is also tied to Venezuela. All the money that was being filtered out of Iran, a large chunk of it went to Venezuela. And who was it that wanted to get that but our current administration in the United States wanted to get it. And now Trump's talking about, well, I think I want Cuba now. Oh, I started with Greenland. Can't get Greenland, so let's go ahead and attack Iran. Oh, that's not so easy. That's kind of a long, long battle.
Real estate is his thing, though. Tiger doesn't really change his stripes, man.
This is not Monopoly, bro. So
yeah, but it's one of the only thing he knows.
For him to get on there and say, I want Park Place. I want all these other things. And it's like, wow. And so I think what's happening is that when the king has no clothes and it's totally starting to fall apart, then what happens? That's when the raping and pillaging really begins. That's when the corruption really gets to a zenith. And that's what's happening right now. And as we get more and more coherence, we're starting to reveal the underbelly of its opposite that also must exist. So I'll show you this last part, and because I think it's very relevant.
Thank you so much for your generosity, Robert. Really, really appreciate it.
All right, so as part of this, I told you about the harmonic solids, right? Harmonic solids are the new geometry.
Yes.
And the harmonic solids are unique because they're a combination of golden ratio and silver ratio. The Archimedean solids make the silver ratio, and the Platonic solids make golden ratio. But neither the Platonic solids nor the Archimedean solids are particularly strong.
Really?
Their tensegrity is not the strongest. And just like the Great Pyramid is built of irregular blocks, no two blocks, you'll see it when you're there, are the same.
Not triangles, really, are they?
The irregularity is what makes it stronger. And so we tend to look at a world of wanting to see perfection and symmetry all the time. We love the dodecahedron. We love the icosahedron. These are perfectly symmetrical objects. But we don't necessarily want to see the things that are actually stronger. And the stronger ones come from the combination of the two. So there's something called an electrum ratio. The electrum, and Matthias talks about this all the time, is when you combine the left and right brain, and you can find the optimal mix of gold and silver. The sun merging with the moon in your consciousness. That optimal mix is a 70-30 proportion. So you've got gold at 70% and 30% at silver, and this overcomes the softness of gold and the brittleness of silver. This is why they made coins in Roman times out of electrum. Now, in 1492, an easy way to remember this, 1492 was a year that Christopher Columbus brought exposure to the New World. And it just so happens the electrum ratio happens to be that same number. And it's kind of funny the way consciousness brought that in, because it was right before Christmas, and my kids were talking about this 6 and 7 phenomenon that everyone was talking about. It was like a viral sensation.
6, 7? Yeah, and it's just like designed for adults not to know what it is.
Right, and like, what the heck is this? It was like some basketball player, but it showed up everywhere. And so I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute, I went to their house and they had this little tinsel, kind of elf sitting on their shelf, and it had 6 and 7 cards all around it. I'm like, what's with the 6, 7 cards? And my kids are like, oh, Dad, you don't know it's 6 and 7, 6 and 7. I was like, oh, what the heck is this? And I realized it was so ridiculous, it didn't make any sense. I started looking up that number. And this was the exact same time I was discovering the new geometric forms of the harmonic solids, and that the ratio was 1.492. Well, of course, what is the value for 1 over 67?
Oh, no, 1.492?
Yep. And it happened in the exact same day. So this is the universe from a single seed, and then it projects up into these higher order geometries, like this alphahedron.
What do you think about the cosmic joke where it leaves us clues? What do you think about that?
It's leaving us clues all the time.
There are little bits of humor in that, surely there are, right? The humor's got to be part of it, right? Humor is something sacred, is it not, Touchwood?
I discovered this new geometric form 5 years ago, but I didn't know that it was part of an overall family that was all harmonic solids, that used this same relationship of 1.492 across the board. And nor did I also discovered this one 5 years ago. And I didn't know they came up with the same exact proportion too.
Why was Bucky Fuller so obsessed with the cube octahedron?
Because the cube octahedron is the structure of space-time.
Oh.
It's the inner structure that we can define, the musical structure that nests right inside of this alphahedron structure, the one that I showed you with the eye, the stellated form of it.
Yeah.
That's what it really is. And so this becomes the harmonic solids. They have 70% golden ratio proportion, and they're asymmetric. So they're golden asymmetry. And that, my friend, is what we are. We come here to realize that we are like kintsugi. Do you know what kintsugi is?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. I'm Taurus rising. How do I not know what kintsugi is? It's where you fill the cups with gold and make them more beautiful than what they initially were through the places they were once cracked.
So you start with Japanese pottery. They break the pottery, and then they fill the cracks, and they put it back together with electrum and gold. Not only does it become more beautiful, it actually becomes stronger too.
It's quite a difficult art, actually. It's quite toxic to work with. It's not resin. I mean, modern people start to use resin, but the actual original art, the material that they fill it with is actually very needs artisanal like awareness to actually work with.
And so does suffering, my friend. Because every scar you have is a scar that once you realize its purpose, becomes filled with gold.
The cracks are where the light gets in, Rumi. Oh my God, we're here. So good.
You change your perception, and when your perception shifts, your whole history changes, because then everything you thought was the most difficult suffering you went through actually it turns from the pain of your suffering to the gold of your soul evolution.
A miracle in A Course in Miracles is defined as a change in perception.
And that's what we need to change the world, a change in perception. Instead of judging it and hating it and calling it something that I'm not that I'm not, we have to go from neti to I am that I am and fall in love with this world just as it is. And the moment we do is when we transcend it. That's the doorway to the higher dimensions. That's the doorway to the newer. We're literally in this kintsugi reality.
Because my parting question was going to be words of wisdom for the wise that are tuning into this podcast. Some very profound implications here. But then the rubber hits the road in the day-to-day. This is a lot to digest and sit with and obviously frame ourselves into and with our awareness around. But any words of wisdom on the day-to-day for those that are tuning in, having shared what you've shared. Robert, what are you hoping for the wise that are tuning into this?
If you think that you're not perfect, if you think, okay, this might work for you, Robert, but it doesn't necessarily work for me. Actually, what I'm going to show you now to close this all out is that this applies to everybody. It's not something that only applies to somebody like me. It applies to literally everybody and everything. And that's what makes it so beautiful, in fact. So the
universality of it.
Right, the universality of it. The golden number is, this beautiful thing, right? We all know the golden ratio. And the golden ratio is this kind of very special number that we always talk about because it has this unique property that other numbers don't have. And I'll show you what that property is. That property is actually mantissa's that's the same. And I've showed you this before. So the mantissa is the decimal extension of a number. And if I just show you a calculator here. So the golden number is defined as the square root of 5. And this shows up in everything, right? We see it in our DNA relationships. We see it in everything. Root 5 plus 1 divided by 2. So 1.618. You know that number, Fibonacci number, right? Lots of people know this number. It's often what you're going to see when you first start your spiritual path. So it's like the first signature of God. But what if I told you I discovered a new equation that applies to every number that has the same property as this? Because what makes this number special is when you take its reciprocal value, it's the same. So 1 over 1.618033987 is the same. Its value
And so
is,
you can do that again and keep cycling in, cycling in, and cycling in.
that's right. It goes on forever like that. It's like a white hole and a black hole. It's the distance between your pupils versus your temples. It's the volume of your bottom lip versus your top lip. It's the waist to hip ratio.
Also the absorption versus the emanation that you were discussing
The
earlier.
absorption versus the emanation. Exactly. It's where there's a hole in space-time and the two can be connected. Two sides can actually converge at this golden ratio. And that's why we find it beautiful, because it's literally the signature of God, the creator. So, but I found a way to do this with any number. So instead of doing it the way I just showed you, I just take 1, divide by 2. So I take the 1, I divide it into 2, and create a shadow, subconscious, unconscious, and conscious mind. I imbue that person that I've now divided into 2 parts. And I say one half of it's the hero, and both sides think they're the hero. Neither side wants to be the villain. Just like pessimists never admit they're pessimists, the best you're going to get from them is to say that they're realists. Right? Because it's not socially acceptable to say, yeah, I'm a pessimist. It's just, people don't do that, right? Because it's not fun to do that. Nobody wants to hang around pessimists. So it's like, I'm a realist.
Or realists for that matter. Touch wood. Sorry. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry. I'm
You have
kidding.
to
It's a joke.
you have to realize that when you're divided into 2, you have talents, you have gifts. Just like the gene keys, you've got gifts. You've got a challenge, but you've got gifts. And your
And
gifts
cities.
are directly tied to your weaknesses. The things that make you great in certain areas are the same things that make you weak in those opposite areas. You can't have one without the other. So once you realize that, then you start realizing, I'm just going to work with my gifts and I'm going to exponentiate myself. So I square it. And then I'm going to add back the 1 in my life, the monad. Then I'm going to take the essence of that, 'cause the square root is like finding the spirit of that new form that's me and the 1 together. And it comes out to this. Now I have to add back and reintegrate my shadow. So I find God, I find the universe, this beautiful thing. I find the essence of that together with God, and now I need to integrate my shadow back, so I'm going to add back the part that was lost, the 0.5 that I took away in the beginning, the villain. And now look, I'm back to this. And I take its 1 over x, and it's the same number except minus 1. And that's literally the positive photograph and the negative version of the photograph. Now let's try it for the number 2. Let's see if we can do this as well. So we take 2 divided by 2. Then we square it. We add back the 1, the divine. We take the square root. And now we add back the 1 we took away in the beginning. We reintegrate the shadow into 1. And now look what happens. We have 2.4142. This is called the silver ratio. And by the way, it's 1 over x holds the same property. We didn't know this. So now let's take the number 3 and do this. So we take the number 3, we divide it by 2, put it into duality, square it, add back the 1. Once we've exercised our talents and found our way back to the 1, then we find our essence again, and we add back the part we took away, which was the 1.5. Reintegrate the villain. And now look what happens. Identical. So you could give me any number. So let's say that you're the number 7 and we're all indivisible prime numbers. We're all units of source consciousness that cannot be divided into smaller units. That would make sense, right? A soul would have to be like its own unit that's an indivisible form. So if we are serialized, maybe we'd only be serialized with prime numbers. Well, let's say that we take this concept of you, which would be the number 7, which is prime, and 1 over 7. And prime numbers have this property when you get beyond 5 that they always create a period that's a repetition. So 0.14285, 714, 7.
Recurring.
Right? It just keeps going on. And each one of these adds up to a 9. So 1 plus 4 plus 2 plus 8 plus 5 equals 27 equals 9. 2 plus 7 equals 9. And I wrote this in a paper, discovered this, that every prime number has this property. without exception, after the number 5. So it's got this completion cycle embedded within it.
Mm.
You break your karma, because this is feeling a lot like karma. If I am my U and the world around me is not a universe but a U inverse, then my cycle of life is going to be this repetition cycle until I learn how to break out of it. How do I move into my dharma and move out of my karma? Here's how. The number 7 divided by 2. Put it into duality. It finds its talents. It exponentiates itself. It adds back the 1. I take the square root of that to find its essence. Then I add back the 3.5 that I took away. The shadow or the villain gets reintegrated. Now this becomes a golden form of the number 7. No longer bound by the U inverse of repetition and karma, because now it's infinite. This is the golden thread, and every number can find its golden thread. And this is literally the mathematics of Gene Keys, which is you have your, and I had a long talk with Richard Run about this a few years ago, and now I finally understood it fully.
Mm.
Every
Thanks,
one of
3i
us,
Atlas. Sorry.
every one of us has a golden thread. That golden thread has the power to break our karmic cycle as we move into our dharma and out of our karma. It's a numerical representation of the challenge, the gift, and the city.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you're so deep in this, Robert, at the moment, which I'd just like to harken back to. And sorry, and my tone sounds dismissive of what you just said, and it's completely not. It's standing on the shoulders of what you've just said. Honoring this is, once again, for the average listener that's tuning in, yeah, like at some point it's like, so the war that's going on in the world is waging within me. What do I do? What do I do, Robert? Words of wisdom for the wise?
Yeah. Learn to fall in love with yourself. It's our own version of self-hatred and self-loathing and judgment of all those aspects that you start off by saying, the conversation I had with my mother. I shouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so you don't have to learn to love the war around you, but rather you've got to have a look at the things that are warring within you, that are showing up in your personal, interpersonal stuff, and that's the place to start doing the work.
What you have to do is you start realizing that the world around you is literally a projection of the world on the inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
That war within is what projects to the outer war.
Mm-hmm.
They're not separate from you. It's not
So you
evil
start
people.
looking at your internal emotional discomforts.
It's you. You have whole galaxies within you, 70 trillion of them, at least. We all have everything within us. We are our own universe, literally. Our own unique universe that will never be the same and has never been the same in the past and will never be the same again. Realize that all the issues, everything you've been doing, everywhere you've been going, has all literally just been a journey within yourself. And that's the most beautiful thing that you could ever imagine. It's just mind-blowing. So I did this post a few days ago that I think actually answers your question so well. The unraveling of the story, the unveiling of the truth is actually the most beautiful thing ever. And the only way to get to the unveiling of the truth is to find your true self. And that is by allowing yourself to be entirely authentic, not being ashamed of anything, loving yourself completely and wholly and totally, and everybody else too. And that you can individuate. Individuation is not to reject your individuality by saying that's ego. Individuation is realizing the value of your individuality. Individuation is realizing that you exist for a reason, and that is to be the exact unique person that you were always intended to be, just so that you could observe one source creator through your unique eyes of perception that no one else has ever had, no one will ever have again. And realizing that is that I have a purpose. I have a reason for being a raison d'etre. My raison d'etre is exactly to be who I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be somebody else. And that's exactly what we all think when we come to this earth. We all think that we've got to be like everyone else so we can fit in. And actually, the opposite is true. When we decide to be ourselves fully and totally, then the world conforms to what we are. And we fit like a puzzle piece into this entire tapestry, this incredible mosaic of experience, where everybody has value, everybody has purpose, everyone's on the same team. And it's only through realizing that you are what you've been looking for all along that you get to learn this. And I think it's the most beautiful self-realization that could ever be. So go to the ends of the earth to realize all we've been doing has been traveling within. Even the outer journey was all an inward journey. And we're here just to learn how to love and be loved and to accept who we are as individuals.
Don't forget to add back the villain.
So that's what's happening. That's the reckoning you asked about at the beginning of the podcast. The reckoning is the realization that we have to integrate the villain. And the villain is us. It's not outside of us.
And it's just that little part. The rest of us is this golden thread. Well, it's part of the golden thread.
It's all part of the golden thread. And you could think of this as shattering of the pot. And the realization,
Kintsugi.
and the acceptance of it is the gold of our soul evolution. It's the electron.
Robert Evergrande. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for your time, your energy, your sharings, your insights, your wisdom. And you know what, brother? I'm going to go there. Your love and your care for all of us. It's very easy to, you could continue staying in hermitude, but I don't think what's bursting through would let you. But nonetheless, you continue to show up with such grace, with such care, and just so much service, brother. It's an absolute honor to be sharing in these conversations with you. And it's not lost on me that, yes, today's conversation is incredibly rich and profound and poignant and timely, but also it stands on the shoulders of your own life's work. So as always, thank you for you, Robert. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate you. Can't wait to hang out with you in Egypt in November. My goodness, give you a nuggety little hug. But yeah, man, thank you so much for today. Thank you. Thank you.
For all the work you do. And, I think that last thing that the video just showed, which was in a candid moment from a podcast, not dissimilar to this one. For me, all of this math would mean nothing. It would be just numbers and equations and information, if not for the philosophy that underpins all of it. Learning the language of God means that you can commune with the creator, that aspect of yourself that's that 12-dimensional self. There's the limited self, that's you and me, but then there's the unlimited self, that's that. And it's also you, and all of the information for you to return back to that is embedded within the geometry as compressed information in lossless compression within your physical frame as it is right now. It's isomorphic, meaning that all the information of the higher, more complex object is embedded within lower complexity object, which is us, the limited self versus the unlimited self. And to me, I can't think of a more beautiful thing.
Yahweh. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You made it through to the end of another really incredible episode, touch wood. Thank you so much for your inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother walking this path by your side. To all of you that are subscribed to the channel, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything you see around here, it's all powered and empowered by you championing this podcast. Costs you absolutely nothing. It's absolutely free. Hit the subscribe button below. And it supports love, positivity, and wisdom like this being spread through the channel. Thank you so much. thank you for your support. It really goes such a long way. Cannot thank you enough. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors in the Inspired Evolution. Please join the community, join the movement, spreading love, positivity, and wisdom like this around the planet together. Thank you so much in advance for your incredible support. It costs you absolutely nothing. It's completely free. Just hit that subscribe button. It helps power the entire movement. Thank you. Friendly reminder again, we have, if you're inspired by this content and you want to forge it into real connection, we have the Inspired Evolution Community Circle, the Circle online as well. You can check it out, inspiredevolution.com/circle if you feel the call for more community in this Aquarian time like this. And on screen now for you to dive in even deeper on your journey of the Inspired Evolution, the next best episode. So go on, take your pick and make your click. I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you there.